In Super Mario Bros. Wonder, there are loads of new enemies, but which one is the strongest out of all? Well, today we will look at the 10 strongest new enemies in the game, ending with the one who beats all, and I bet the answer will surprise you. So, let's begin! Number 10. When I booted up the game, I could see that Nintendo added loads of new enemies, like an insane amount. And I get why. They had to impress players after more than 10 years. That's how long they hadn't released a new 2D title. And one of the first ones I encountered was the Skedaddler, a rodent enemy that spits seed-like projectiles at you. And this can already be incredibly tough to deal with. You got those things constantly flying around your ears. But then when you try to do something about it, these little buggers will just run like cowards, and they are really fast as well. But if you stop at any point, they will start shooting again, so they are a bit of a nightmare to deal with. If you truly want to kill them, you got to race them and either catch up or hope that they bump into something. So sure, it's not the hardest foe out there, but they certainly are a fun challenge. But this isn't all. In Super Mario Bros. Wonder, there's a fun little Easter egg involving these guys. When you're an elephant, you can use the trunk to hit a Skedaddler's projectiles, which will cause it to spit faster and darker projectiles. And after hitting 5 in a row, coins will fall from above, and the Skedaddler will some sort of reset, which is freaky, but it's a good way of farming coins off these annoying buggers. Number 9. There Mario goes, running through the level, but then, all of a sudden, he jumps, and this thing appears. A hoppy cat. An odd little enemy that attacks by jumping when the player also jumps, which can be held to deal with when there are a lot of them, or when you're going fast and don't expect them. I mean, each time you jump, they jump, and so you can bump into them very easily. When I was playing the game, they always forced me to slow down, because otherwise I would take damage constantly. So yeah, they aren't the hardest enemy to deal with, but man oh man, they can ruin your day. Especially in some of the Hoppy Cat levels where you encounter a billion of these little freaks. Number 8. Nintendo can be an evil company. In a lot of their games, they try to trick the players using certain traps and misleading tricks. And to be honest, I quite like this stuff. And of course, they added things like this in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, with one new enemy being a great example of such trickery. This fake door monster, which doesn't have a name as far as I know. In the internal files of the game, it's only referred to as moving door. So I guess that's its name? They disguise themselves as normal doors, and they attack when players get near, using their large mouth filled with sharp teeth to deal damage. And you defeat it by jumping on its head and then using the door like normal. Now clearly this is a trap enemy similar to others like the ghost block from New Super Mario Bros. U. They are just normal things in the game that suddenly come to life and try to freaking kill you. And that can make them hard to deal with, especially in the beginning when you're not aware of them. So they aren't the strongest, but they are good at tricking players. Number 7. In past Super Mario games, we came across enemies known as spikes. They throw big spike balls at you in order to deal some serious damage. And now in Wonder, a brand new spike type has appeared that throws pretty big fireballs instead of spike balls. Now if you don't watch out, these little guys can be hell to deal with, especially because the things they throw fly in a straight line. And if you don't watch out, you can easily get hit by these, and especially in a level like KO Arena Magma Flare. Here you need to deal with a load of these annoying freaks, and time is also important, so you have to be fast. And so you constantly need to dodge fireballs, and you also need to pay attention that you don't jump on top of one of them when he grabs a fireball, because then you will take damage for sure. Really, during this fight, it's best to have a power-up. When I went through this arena, I can remember being hit here and losing my power-up, which certainly made things a lot harder. But in the end, I managed. Number 6. Some enemies look completely innocent or harmless in the game, but when you finally try to take them out, you realize how scary they are. And one enemy in the game is exactly like that. These purple snakes that are known as Shubo-chan in the internal files. That's really the only name we have for them. When you first encounter them, they are quite slow and a bit goofy, because they wear pots on their head, and so they can't really see you. But when I first saw them, I underestimated them heavily, which was a mistake, because as soon as you jump on them and break the pot on top of their head, everything changes. Because all of a sudden they start moving a whole lot faster, which surprised me multiple times actually. When I encountered them and jumped on their heads, they were also faster than I remembered. And so at times they still got me. For example, in the level KO Arena Sunbaked Skirmish. So personally, I found these enemies quite frustrating, and if I could, I would completely avoid them. Number 5. Most enemies in the Super Mario series aren't that smart. They have their basic attack mechanics and that's it. For example, Koopa Troopas just walk around a bit, and the Hammer Bros throw hammers and jump. They don't react to the player's actions really, and never do any form of counterattack. We only saw examples of that in games like Yoshi's Island. But now a new enemy has been introduced that also reacts to your attacks, the Out of My Ways. And they have one move that really surprised me. They kick ice blocks and shells that are in their way, which I found out in my playthrough really quick, because when I saw one I had a shell and tried to kill it with that. But then to my surprise, it stopped the thing and kicked it right back at me, and so I got hit. In the end, their attack pattern is reminiscent of the Buster Beetle from Super Mario Bros. 3 or the blue Beach Koopas from Super Mario World. And while they can be a pain to deal with, I'm glad Nintendo actually added them to the game. Number 4. Now, enemies seen in the Super Mario games can freely move around, either hopping or walking back and forth, but some are also restricted in their movement, and you would expect that this makes them easier to deal with. But that's not always the case, and the Pokey petas are a good example of an enemy that moves along rails, but are still a challenge. When moving around, they punch everything in front of them, destroying almost anything in their path, and there's also a red version that moves a whole lot faster, and the only way you can defeat them is by attacking their single uncovered segment, or attacking them with the elephant form's trunk. Now these guys can be very tough if there are multiple of them and they jump between different tracks. And especially with the red ones, hitting that one unprotected segment can be a challenge, and missing can result in a hit. When things are chaotic, this enemy can be extra annoying to deal with. For example, during the wonder effect of the level Pokepeta Pass. And that's why they're here on the list. Number 3. Ever since Super Mario Bros. 3, Nintendo has been a massive fan of making all kinds of enemy variations, like different types of Koopa Troopas or Bullbills. And in Super Mario Bros. Wonder, we saw this as well, because just like we saw in previous games, we got new Bullbill types. And while some are easy to deal with and function more like a platform, this isn't the case with all of them. There's one out there that really tries to take you down, and some fans call it the Dragon Bullseye Bill, which is just a bullseye bill with a dragon-like appearance due to its length, that flies around and chases you. And as far as I know, it's only seen in one level, Knucklefest Bowser's Blazing Beats, one of Bowser's final challenges. In this level, you will be pursued by loads of these, and they can be tricky because they constantly hunt you, and they are quite a big enemy, and so they can quite easily get you. And especially in that one Bowser level, they increased the difficulty quite a bit. It's just sad that they weren't seen in that many levels, because I think they are pretty neat. Number 2. Now, of course, there's another Bullbill on this list, known as the Seeker Bullbill, an enemy that is weird but also really cool and hard to deal with at times. They are basically little Bullbills that fly at you as soon as they see you, but instead of flying off when they miss, like most of them, they actually come back. They stick to the environment they come in contact with, and they can go after you again, which you can see in a level like Evade the Seeker Bullbills. And the thing that makes them a nightmare is the fact that they will constantly fly after you and attack from weird angles, which is especially hellish when you're in a confined space. Now, if you're good, you can make them bump into each other and then they die, but sometimes you can also become completely overwhelmed and they come from all angles, and that is exactly why they're on this list. Number 1. Now, one enemy I never expected to see in this game was a new type of chain chomp, and this one even flies. It's known as the Nasher, a nasty little creature that is just horrible to deal with, especially when you're facing a horde of them. In Nasher Lair, you encounter loads of them and they won't stop unless you kill them, and they will chew through almost anything. And so when you come into contact, you take damage. But even when that doesn't happen, they will eat all the platforms you might need for platforming. I mostly struggled struggled with them during the KO Arena Magma Flare-Up level, where 1,000,000 red ones show up that will chase you. If you don't watch out, they will all come for you at once, and then you're in for a really bad time. And so, because of that, I would say that these are the hardest enemies to deal with in the entire game. And I bet they could also beat any of the other foes on this list. Now, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave any ideas below, because believe me, I read a lot of the comments the first couple of days the video is out.